Welcome back to Flashback Files, where we help students, recent grads, and young professionals reflect on how early experiences shape confidence, identity, and the way we think about the future. Today's conversation is a special one. My guest is Sam, someone I've known since we were 12 years old. From middle school to high school, working her first jobs and navigating life into adulthood, she's been a constant presence through so many different chapters. We grew up side by side in a lot of ways, spending every day of the summer together before high school, working our part time jobs at McDonald's, and eventually even living together during college. But what makes this conversation meaningful isn't just the history, it's the path she chose. At one point, when many people feel pressure to stay the course, Sam made the decision to step away from the college program she was in and pursue something completely different. And from there, she built her career steadily over time, starting in administrative roles, taking on responsibility early, stepping into union work, and eventually moving into leadership, negotiation, and advocacy at a much higher level. In this episode, we talk about what it actually looks like to trust yourself when the path isn't clear, how confidence is built through experience, not certainty, and what leadership really means when it's grounded in accountability, resilience, and representing others. This one will cover growth, self trust, and the quiet decisions that end up shaping who you become. Sham, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, for listeners who don't know you, can you please share a little bit about yourself? And I'll give you a couple of cues, maybe what kind of kid you were, activities you indulged in. And I'm really curious the family dynamics from your perspective. We had your sister Cindy touch on the regiment of getting chores done and that sort of thing. So, just wondering if you can provide maybe a little bit of a take on that.
Sure. So I am the youngest of six girls in my family growing up. Lots of family dynamics going on there, all incredibly positive, I would say. Mom and dad still married to this day. And yeah, we still have a fairly close knit family. I now have 11 nieces and nephews with a great nephew and two great nieces as well. So just lots of family surrounding me for sure. So that definitely has played a big part in my life, just having that support there. And being the youngest of six girls, not always having my voice heard or not always feeling my voice was heard, but also probably having the feeling that I'm sort of looked at from the others as being the baby of the family, which could work to my advantage or not. So, you know, I feel it took until a lot later in life for my views and opinions to be more sort of heard and respected from the older sisters and whatnot. But also, I don't want to put thoughts in people's heads or how they may feel, but maybe a slight bit of also jealousy because I think I was treated more as the baby of the family. And so sort of had that. I've always had an extra special, like, close relationship with my mom that others may not have, and a big part of that, which we'll probably get into later, is just about because of my career path that I chose and my mom playing a part in that, so we certainly have just a different relationship that we've been able to kinda lean on.
And what about activities that you indulged in when you were
Right.
younger?
Activities I did when I was younger. Used to I mean, just lots of playing and everything, like, outside and, like, always having someone to play with in the neighborhood. We were always outside, like, playing hide and seek and that sort of thing, and, like, kickball and whatever, but if I actually got into, like, sports well, I did dance when I was in, I don't know, grade 5 and 6 maybe, 4, 5, 6. I'm at Cheryl's dance studio. It's definitely not still around. I don't even know how long it lasted when it was around, but, we did some dances to Opposites Attract, Paula Abdul and some Addams Family, and so that was a big thing for me, and, but after that, just kinda I got into a little bit of just, like, slow pitch more just school organized sports. I didn't really do, like, sports, like, outside of school, but just, like, through middle school and whatnot, like, on, yeah, the 3 pitch tournaments that we would do, and, I was on basketball, and that might have been it.
Okay. So you and I We met at an end of year school party in grade 7, and somehow we built a friendship that has lasted more than 30 years. When you look back at now on that, how do you think the friendship was sustained?
I think a part of it was just or a big part of it is just how easy it is and was between us, which is really difficult to actually just sort of explain, but, like, literally the night we met, you I had a little backpack on, and you started just rummaging through it while it was on my back. I just met you, like, literally just met you, and I was okay with it, and it was fun, and it was whatever, and so, like, it's just, like, we've always just had this, like, really easygoing, just chill, like, whatever happens, happens. You steal the cheese off my pizza and eat it, and I'm okay with you put lipstick on my posters in my wall, on my bedroom wall, and I just get over it. Like, I think I think honestly though, like, I know I said it, but it's just like the easygoing of just like it it was so incredibly natural, and it is. And like I've never felt like I need to hide something from you or keep something from you. And I believe you feel the same way about me as well. So I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that when I think back to the first summer that we spent, like, so you talked about we talked about the school year-end party and that sort of thing, and I think within a week or so, was invited over to your place, and never would have imagined in a million years that would have been like a safe space in terms
Mhm.
of hanging out, maybe escaping from my home for a bit because there's a little bit of chaos there. But it was a very, like you said, easy thing to do in terms of becoming friends. And we didn't put pressure on what we were doing. I would just go
Yeah.
over and we would just literally let the day come to us.
Yeah, and we never planned it out, like, just yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with the fact that it was very easy and also very an open friendship too, in terms of just sharing what's going on. And yeah, it's been a very, very fun 30 years in terms of
Absolutely.
reflecting. We'll get into a little bit more of that. So we did come from different middle schools, but we ended up spending, again, almost every day together that summer. So you did talk off a couple of things where I'm just talking about how when I think about what you brought up, the lipstick on the poster, stealing cheese, it was like just screaming for attention. So that aside, the fact we already know that I had middle child syndrome, but aside from that, what do you remember most vividly about those years? Are there a couple of like prominent situations, memories that stand out when you think about the early years?
If we're, like, talking early years, just honestly, just fun. Just how much fun we always had together. Like you just said, like, everything was just, like, not planned. We just show up and just go with the flow like, we laughed every single day, all day. Like, it was literally just so, like, you even said, like, maybe a little bit of escape for you. Like, it was just, like, so much fun. I remember even when you were, like, extremely sick and we had plans to watch Goosebumps, the premiere of Goosebumps. So you still came over and laid on the couch with the blanket on and had your mom come and pick you up after, which you normally would never do. Like, you lived close enough that you would walk home, whatever. But, like, just like, I don't know, there was just a closeness that, like, just and I always fondly remember our drives with Terry that we used to always take and just getting our way with what we wanted to do to have fun too, like, in such, like, a like, easygoing, like, nothing bad, but just, like, we wanted to go for a drive to Burlington. We would go for a drive to Burlington. We couldn't drive, but someone would take us.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up Burlington, so or Burger King, brought that one up, but, also Canada's Wonderland. Your house did always feel like a gathering place until 11 PM. If it was 11:01, get the berry slipper that rang through the ceiling above us. But that aside, up until 11 PM, there would be, music videos on television, people in and out and hanging in the basement making videos. And just existing without pressure. What do you think made that environment so special? So there's one thing in terms of you and I hanging out, but you also had the likes of Shout out to O'Connor and uh, Lloyd and even Danny. You know, those are I'm thinking with the early years. Of course,
Yeah.
you had Dustin and Scott and Jay and Tom, but what do you think made the Wilson house a special environment like that?
I think the pop fridge helped. The PC Cola always stocked in the fridge. I think honestly, obviously my parents, they worked a lot and my parents weren't always home, but that wasn't why we hung out there because like you said, like until 11 p.m. and then it was like Barry's slipper and like get out and everyone shuts down at that point. So like they were home, but we had our own private space there and my parents were welcoming of people being there. I think they've never said it to me, but I think they probably also looked at it as I'd rather our house be the community house kind of thing than them off out in the streets doing whatever, right? Um, but yeah, and even like that. So like you said, we had the dynamics of like O'Connor and Lloyd and Danny and anyone just kind of dropping by. But we also even had like Mandy would walk downstairs and just come hang out for a little bit, or one of her friends would Chrissy or whoever, like someone would Megan would just like be there as well, and we would all just it was just the gathering spot. And I think it was, like, the setting of the basement as well, like, even though we were directly below my parents' bedroom, other than that, you felt like you were a million miles away from anyone else in the house when you were down there. And it was a big open space, like, big comfort the big screen TV too helped, like, at that time in life, we had a big whatever, 52 inches, which was huge at that time, but, like, I think just it just made it feel like just like this is a spot that everyone can come and hang out and feel comfortable.
And you just touched on the fact that Mandy would come down, or the fact that you had six sisters, you're the youngest. Sorry, five sisters, you're the youngest, and you had Mandy, who's a year older than you, Cindy, that's 3 years, Kim, that's four, et cetera, et cetera. They all had their friends over. So, I mean, if I'm going
Mhm.
to be honest, a teenage boy, it wasn't an inconvenience to have that exposure. What I'm getting at is it actually created some familiarity of faces in high school, which was a
Yeah, for
scary
sure.
place.
Yeah.
Well, like Chrissy, I'm thinking of Mandy's friend, like just such a big personality and that sort of thing. It was really good to see them, at your place, but also bump into them in Hill Park and make it just a little bit more comfortable as
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking back as an adult, what do you think young people, and maybe just speak from your context, what do you think you were searching for during those early years? And I'll give you a couple of things to think about: identity, belonging, confidence, attention, stability. If you were to think about what you might have been searching for, whether consciously or unconsciously, what would you come up with?
I think probably like you said, like belonging and confidence, I guess. Like I'm not saying I'm necessarily saying that for myself, but I think that's what a lot of young people are sort of looking for. I think belonging is a huge one that you don't realize it at the time yourself that that's what you're searching for, but now as you can kind of reflect back, it's huge. From the time you're young, you're trying to feel like you belong.
Right. And I'm just tying it back to your comments about not feeling heard as the youngest in the family. That could be maybe even magnified. And it's
Yeah.
interesting in terms of you being heard in your current role because you have a voice today.
Mhm.
We'll get into that, but I was just trying to connect the dots in terms of that sense of belonging and
Yeah.
wanting to be heard in a way. Okay. Do you think you knew who you were back when you were younger, or did your coming up with your identity take a lot longer in general?
Um, I think if I say like I always like I've always been like I was gonna say I've always been comfortable in myself, but I don't even know if that's true. I think I've always known who I am, but it grew as I got older and more comfortable with just things happening in life and things being thrown at you.
Okay. So you had maybe a baseline that maybe has been built on, but
Yeah.
you always had like a default in terms of who you might be as an individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So our friendship is pretty unique. I know, just get a very basic boy girl. And to put that it further into perspective, your side of your wedding party ended up being myself, Tom, Jimmy, and Jay. So we're a group of friends that still hang out and keep in touch. What comes to mind if you were to take inventory of these friendships just in general?
So with these friendships, it just goes again like taking inventory. It's like the easygoing and just how comfortable I am with all of you guys and have been from day one. I would say like I was closer and got to know you and then Tom the most. And like if I was to say like, had like individual hangouts or whatever, it would be you and Tom or you or Tom, like sort of thing, right? I actually don't think Jay and I have ever actually just hung out, just the two of us. But the fact that we're as close as we are, and he was one of my bridesmen, just goes to show like how close we can be and how comfortable we are with each other. And Jimmy, even I don't know, we haven't really had much like alone hangout, whatever. But just that piece, like. But if I sort of take inventory, it's like I just feel like you guys, like the friendships that I've had with you guys have just, I don't know, given me different perspective on things. And I obviously had close girlfriends as well growing up, but it was a completely different vibe and completely different time every time I would hang out with you guys versus hanging out with my girlfriends. There was and like I mean my friendships that I had been friends with Tanya since grade 1 and so like for a long time, so like it was very 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 close. But you always, I find, always with girls, you always have, there's like a little bit of pettiness that comes along, and it's usually like as you get into your teens and things like that. I've never felt that with my friendship with you guys, and I just think that that's like just really made me like I'm the type of person where I don't want drama. I don't want, and I'm not saying there was drama, but it's just like it was just always just so chill. Like, and you show, and to this day, when we do our hangouts, I show up with little to no expectations and I have the best nights of my life when we hang out. Like my face is sore from laughing so much when I go home. Like I come home and I feel hungover the next morning and we didn't have a drink the night before. Like that's just how much fun that we still have to this day in our 40s hanging out. And I love that. And you don't get that very often with friends.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the whole dynamic that we've created, and I think we're jumping ahead, but I really just want to touch on to maybe punctuate what you're talking about in terms of low expectations and having like a crazy night. So, can you, from your perspective, do a quick rundown of your bachelorette in Hoboken, New Jersey? I think that kind of falls in line with what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So that was like, I mean, we talk about it all the time. It was only 3 years ago, but it's something I think about it constantly. And it was just the best time away ever. We had this great Airbnb just outside of New York where we could just take the train in and out. And so I think I know what you're alluding to with this question, but the whole no expectations and just having a great time. You guys planned out an amazing trip for us and just lots of walking around and stuff during the day. Um and then, even we did a horse and carriage ride in Central Park. And then as we're sitting on the grass in Central Park and saying, "What are we doing tonight?" And then I just say, "I would like to go to a rooftop patio, a rooftop bar, whatever, with of course the best scenes in Manhattan. And I would like to meet Tony Danza." And lo and behold, before we made it home that evening, we went to a beautiful rooftop bar with amazing scenes, and I met Tony Danza.
You honestly cannot make this up. Honestly, it was from my perspective, we're at Sam is very laid back and chill, and so we're asking and asking and asking, "What do you wanna do?" Is, "Whatever, we'll let it come to us." And then, as she mentioned, in Central Park, just, "I would like a rooftop patio, a drink, and Tony Danza." Tony Danza happened to be in the city at the time, and just shout out to Jimmy. We won't get into the details, but Jimmy just magically got into a what is it? What do you call it? Like a black tie event with
Yep,
the Chewbacca shirt and got through security and managed to get a photo. So there's proof. Get Sammy a photo with Tony Danza. So shout out to Jimmy for that. That was just a
yep,
miracle.
yep.
Yeah,
And the best part of the Tony Danza thing is we all have a Tony Danza connection too, right? Like we all who's the boss? Like we all watched it together. So it's like that just made it even more fitting for the Bachelorette.
yeah, absolutely. So going back to the dynamic, so you with us knuckleheads, why do you think sometimes people struggle to understand male female friendships without assuming some sort of romance?
It's actually that's difficult to answer because I don't get it because we clearly have never had that issue or concern, but I understand people that aren't in a type of friendship. Like literally, I'm gonna say like 2 weeks ago on the radio, I heard them talking like male and female cannot be just friends. And I'm just like, I won't call into a radio station, but, like, I wanted to call and be like, "Actually, yes, they can." Like, there's never been that concern or whatever of, like, anything further than friendship with any of us, right? So, I don't get it. Maybe, honestly, maybe they just haven't had the joy of experiencing the situations that we have, like, where it just came so naturally, and maybe because people, like, if they're not thrown into those opportunities, like, you don't understand just how natural it truly is. Like, I don't understand why it matters if you're a man or a woman or like if there's a bond there, there's a bond there. Like I don't know. I mean, I'd even say it's like being like brother and sister, but it's not even like our friendship is like I mean, I don't know what it's like to have brothers, but I suppose this would maybe be, but probably not because I would get annoyed with you guys if you were my brothers. Like so it's just there's just like that right formula that I can't explain, but I don't really know how to put myself into other people's shoes to like try to understand how they don't understand how this can possibly work.
Yeah, okay, that's well put, and I mean, I guess it's great that we don't have to waste time on thinking about that either, because we just got our thing and that's it, right? And just for the record, I think my friendship is was Sham. We call her Sham as a nickname, so if it comes out, it's just a thing, but it was always baked into the relationships that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was understood up front that you and I were friends, and there was actually a trust on, I guess, the girlfriend side of things. Knowing
Mhm.
conventionally, like boy-girl friendships are maybe a little bit more unconventional, but there was a trust there that, you were my best friend and that's it, and, that you take it or leave it kind of thing, and I just always found that really, really cool and neat to be able to have you in my life while not compromising
Yeah.
friendship if I were to, get into a relationship.
Absolutely, and on that, to be honest, like, I mean, the fact that you pointed out earlier that I had all of you as my wedding party, like, it was all males on my side, and, like, I had to sit there and, like, I think Jay will be okay with this, but obviously I need to run it by him before, and I wasn't, like, nervous, but it was just kinda like, "Hey, I have something weird to ask you." And I'm like, "What do you think if I" and there was no hesitation, like, because he obviously completely understands the friendship, but it was just like, "Absolutely." And I think we were getting together, like, a couple days later, and so right away, we were like, "What can I do to ask them?" And, like, literally within 10 minutes, we had left the house, like, on his idea, like, "Let's go get T-shirts, and we'll get them T-shirts made," and, like, so it was just, like, all in, and that's it. So there's just that absolute level of trust, like, that obviously has to be built into our partners.
Mhm, mhm. Jay's a good guy, by the way. Very good guy.
Yes.
So, do you think friendships formed during the formative years impact people differently than friendships made later in life?
I personally think yes. I guess, like and it's just my experience, but, like, later in life, like, most of my friendships are built through work, which is great and fantastic. That's where I spend majority of my time. But so it was just different than when you form your friendships through literally ours wasn't even through school. Ours was literally through another friend and just like we were on the phone one day and, "Hey, give me the phone," and we just start talking, and, it was just so genuine versus I'm not saying my friendships now that I have with people are forced, but it's from, like, an environment that's a little bit more forced because you're working with people and then you start to get to know them and like them and learn things about each other and do things. Like, I have some great friends, that are my colleagues and things like that, but I do feel like the friendships that I have formed earlier with you guys specifically, um, are just different than the friendships that I have now. I also obviously, we've put 30 years into our friendship, so there's a level of trust and, that you just have with each other.
I am a massive advocate of the sustaining friendships from early childhood years right through to adulthood. And the one thing that it's more about me than anything else is I know I put on a bit of a career mask. Like I had to walk the walk, talk the talk,
Mhm.
a sales professional. So how do salespeople dress and talk and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Whereas I remember coming back from college and people saying, "Oh, you talk differently because I was dressed differently and because I was getting polished, I guess, through the professors."
Right.
But at the end of the day, when I would go back and see you or my friends, you could see through that and you knew who I was as an individual, not somebody that was molding myself to be.
Yeah.
And I always appreciated that.
Yeah, for sure.
High school can shape confidence in major ways. So, how much do you think the people around us influence the way we see ourselves at that age?
So, it's tricky because me personally, and probably even you or anyone looking at me from the outside probably wouldn't know this so much, but, like, I wasn't very confident in high school, and so, um, I think surrounding myself with people like you guys helped raise my confidence a bit, but I didn't I was bigger then, and, like, I've lost a lot of weight since then, obviously, and that played a huge role in how you feel, especially when I was a teenager, right? And so, probably on the outside, I looked confident, and I mean, I was fortunate, I didn't go through ridicule for at least not to my face, that I ever heard about my weight and things like that, like, I very rarely had any issues with that from people, but I felt it, and so I think, like, I would walk into a room and not feel that level of confidence, and it's like I wouldn't even want to, like, go into, like, even necessarily walk into class without walking in with someone because, like, I just felt like I needed someone, so having all you guys, like, even, like, people like Brad Manser, Jay Parsons, like, those guys, like, I think having all of you guys around just really did actually sort of build my confidence because none of you were cocky, or that I would say, but you did all have, like, this confidence, I think because a lot of you were fairly outgoing, and I know I was too, but I still always felt, like, on the inside, like, that shy I'm still shy, but, like, that shy girl that, like, "Oh, I can't do that," or, "Oh, I don't wanna make too much noise," or whatever, and draw too much attention to me, so being kind of with you guys around me all the time kind of took what I felt was any attention off of me, and I was just the girl having fun, and I think part of it too was I think I also felt like no one's looking at me like, "Oh, there's that girl that hangs out with all those guys," like, in a bad way, because I also felt like no one was looking at me in that way, so, I think I'm shocking you with this answer a little bit.
I am. We've never talked about that as much as we know each other, but that is a very interesting take on things. And what's surprising though is that I wasn't confident. I mean, I
Right.
was going through my things, which I share, and I'm not going to go into it, but you raise a really good point, like in terms of having that group of people to help maybe lift you up a little bit when maybe you can't lift yourself up in
Yep,
some capacities.
for sure.
But it's also surprising because you were, quite involved in stuff. Like you were social, you had great relationships and friendships across anybody that met you. Everybody knew you as a very nice person. You scorekept
Mhm.
basketball games. Yeah, so it is I'm gonna take some time to process that a little bit because it's the first time you threw it out at me.
Always learning things about each other 30 years in.
Absolutely. What do you think teenagers, maybe put it in your perspective, what do you think you misunderstood about adulthood when you were, in the teenage years?
I mean, I think you just look at it that it's just like this, like, big life's over when you get to be an adult in the sense that, like, you can no longer have fun and it's just like work, 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 serious, very serious. Like when you're younger, you're looking up at the adults around you and it just seems like everything is so serious and tense and I don't know. I think it just you're kind of just looking at it like, I don't know if I want to grow up, but I'm quite content where I am right now in my happy little bubble kind of thing.
I thought at the age of 18, because I didn't know what the prospect of going to college or university was, like maybe around grade 10 and all that. And just thinking, like you said, life is done. We're going to the career. Uh,
Yeah.
and this little carefree life that we have going on, carefree to an extent. I'll get on the fact that we worked at McDonald's and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that sense of innocence is going to disappear as soon as you hit 18. And it's just not.
Mhm. Yeah.
We both did work at McDonald's during high school, which honestly, it felt like its own universe looking back in terms of the social circle
Absolutely.
in McDonald's itself. What did working there teach you about people, responsibility, and some of the friendships that came out of that little community?
I think what I would say what it taught me was it was a true opportunity to really learn how to work with people and, like, different people of all sorts of, like, backgrounds and just mindsets. Like, in school, you're there, you're in class, sometimes you have group work, partner work, whatever, but, like, you're there doing your own thing kinda thing along with everyone else. But at McDonald's, like, you would sometimes run to the back, the manager little corner just to see who else you're working with today, and it's like, "Oh, it's gonna be a good shift, but I'm working with them today," or, like, "Oh, man." But even if it was the, "Oh, man, I'm working with them today," it's like, "Okay, I'm working with them today. So how are we going to do this?" And you really do learn how to work with different personalities because you have no choice. And it's a very small space when you're working there. You started more in the kitchen where I was up front. So I had probably a little bit more space as opposed to you guys in the back there, literally touching each other's backs as you're trying to move around. Um, but yeah, I think that it really did start to teach you how to navigate around people's different personalities and trying to work with them because you're stuck there for at least a 3-hour shift with someone, right? At minimum. And then also, like, when I worked there for longer and working in the drive-through and especially, like, on busy times, but we would do, like, fun challenges and things where it's like HBO's hang bag out. And so we would, do that, and it's like, "Okay, we're working together." So it really also brought, like, a big teamwork perspective as well. And definitely you and others may have had, like, more experience in, like, organized sports and things where you had that teamwork, but I didn't have that so much. So this was kind of my first real, other than a little bit in middle school or whatever, but, like, real, like, teamwork. And I mean, I worked there for 6.5, 7 years, maybe even longer. So I mean, it was my first real job other than delivering newspapers where, again, you're on your own doing that. So my first real job where you're a part of a team.
The fact that you talked about the going in the corner and seeing who was working with you, I just laugh at the fact that when one of, maybe a couple of the crushes that I had were working and I was closing with them, how excited I got. It just made my day. Yeah. And then from a responsibility perspective, we talked about the vicinity earlier, but I don't know if you had this experience where you go to a party the night before and then you have to open, the next day. Did you have any of those experiences?
Was pretty good because I opened every Saturday. I had the 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. shift every Saturday. So I was pretty good at being tame on a Friday night and knowing that Saturday night was my night to party. So not so much. Obviously, I had my share of a few hungover shifts at McDonald's, but not to the extent of some of my friends.
So if you look back at high school, what do you think actually mattered versus what parts might have felt huge at the time, but really weren't?
Who I think actually mattered. I think the value in obviously your education, that really mattered. I just look like high school, when I reflect on high school, all I think about is the friendships and the social aspect in that sense. And so I think it's truly gaining that perspective of meeting new people and just building friendships and trust and loyalty and that sort of thing with people. Whereas at the time, you could literally be eating lunch with one person one day and the next day, I'm done with them and I'm going to hang out over here. And so, like, at the time, you don't necessarily see it so much, but then, like, as you reflect back, it's like, or even at the time when something happens and so and so is no longer talking to so and so, and like that was like a big deal. But it's just like you just need to step back and like it's all the little things like that are just like I said earlier, like just the pettiness and things like that that you're just like just get over it. Like you wish you could reflect back and tell yourself to just get over
Mhm.
things.
I'm trying to think of what was big, but at the time, but didn't really matter. I
I
think it was
know.
a lot of, like, the clothes that I would emphasize, like, just not necessarily going out of my
Ooh.
way and getting something, but that feeling that I had where, I might have been envious or jealous that somebody had something and I didn't have it. Like, how much time and, real estate in my mind that occupied when it was just
Yeah.
it didn't matter, you know?
That's such a great point because literally I am happy to wear like I think this shirt cost me $7 now. And but if I'm literally when you say the clothes, I picture my gray FUBU sweatshirt that I bought on our New York trip in high school that I think I paid like 75 US dollars for at that time, especially like ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I would never. I won't buy anything if it's not on sale. Like
Lesson to the youngins out there. I need you to talk to
big
my
time.
daughters. Okay, so we eventually went away to college and lived in a student house with, I think it was 5 or 6 other people, maybe?
Think 6 other people
Yeah,
plus
6 other
us.
people. What do you
Yeah.
remember most about that transition into independence? And maybe you can start from the course guide.
You mean when our scouting trip to go find our
Yeah, but I'm
apartment?
also talking about
Or
when we
no?
went through the course guide to say, what do we wanna choose? Because we were going through a course guide. Do you want me to remind you of what we did? Okay,
Yeah,
so we were looking at, different programs at different schools. We were doing it together. I think Mohawk was part of it, and I
probably.
I remember opening it up. It had a little bit to do with Who's the Boss. I know a comment about that came up, but it was
Angela.
advertising media sales, so it was on the first couple of pages. We didn't spend any time to go past the A's. We saw advertising sounds interesting. Angela Bauer worked at an advertising agency. Let's do it. That's how we made our decision.
Maybe this is the foreshadowing of why things went the way they went for
Who's the
me.
boss? You're right.
Look look how I make my decisions.
Okay, so now we can pick up on the scouting when your mom, took us through.
Okay. Yeah. I just remember that day, and I just remember, like, it was, like, a big opening of eyes to you, like, just with my mom taking us, but, like, I just remember going and just scouting out. It didn't take us very long to find the house that we found. I don't remember how we went to a couple apartments and things like that, but yeah, that was kinda like I remember somewhat feeling like this is real, like, this is happening, like, we're going to school, like, we're going away to school, and, I don't know if we even considered living on campus. I don't remember because like, it's like our minds were just made up and, like, we are going to live together in a house somewhere nearby, and, I mean, it worked out fantastically. You couldn't really ask for much better than what we had.
No, it should also be called out that we ended up getting a job at the McDonald's, which was walking distance
Yeah,
theoretic.
which we could walk to as well. Yeah, yeah, exactly, other than when you had your Corolla and we would drive down.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we could walk there, we could walk to school, like, it was great.
I want to maybe touch on the McDonald's out there, and I mean, I personally had a culture shock.
And just like you said, like, the environment we had, and we still worked at Rymal, so it's not like we didn't give up our jobs there, but the environment that we had there where we truly did make friendships and hang out with people outside of work, and, like, that wasn't happening at this McDonald's, and I didn't even know people's names when I worked. Like, I literally that was a job. Like, McDonald's at Rymal was it's fun, I like my job, like, I can do this, love it. I'm loving it. But my job in Etobicoke was a job. It's like 4 till 7, like 7 o'clock, can't get here soon enough, like, I just wanna be done. I just need to work because I need the money, but it was a very different environment. No one ever made me feel, like, bad or not wanting to be there, but it just was a total different.
It's just the culture of the space, right? So store manager at the time when we worked, there was this really fun culture where you could mix human interaction with doing the job. Whereas like when we were out in a Etobicoke, Rexdale, it just felt a little bit different where it was that culture element wasn't maybe there as much. Unique to the restaurant. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying corporate is better
Yeah,
any better or worse than franchise. It was just I know that was one of the differences, and it's a different place
for
as a
sure.
whole.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you did make at one point the difficult decision to leave the program at the college that we attended, which I had a silent resentment towards, by the way. But maybe we could talk.
I understand.
Can you walk me through what that experience was like emotionally in terms of making the commitment to do the program and then deciding, and maybe what factors, if you're being honest, tied into that decision?
Are you gonna think that it was because of a
I
boy?
have a sneaking suspicion it might have been, but you proved me wrong.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I don't recall all of what I was thinking or what I went through at the time. I'm sure a boy played a part in it. But as you said, which I actually forgot about, I made my decision partially based on the fact that Angela Bauer was an advertising executive. And I was like, "Oh, I might like that." So that doesn't help if that's how you choose your college path and what you should take in school. But I mean, aside from that, we truly did think it sounded like an interesting course. And I don't really I don't know how to say this, and it's for like a number of things, negative or positive. I kind of like shut down my emotional recall of a lot of my life experiences. And I don't know how healthy that is for me. And it's not that I've been through traumatic experiences or like have had like a negative life or, like I've had a very great positive life, to be honest. But I have a hard time like reflecting on how I felt when I went through pretty big life changes. And I don't even recall having the conversation with my parents to say, "Hey, I'm not so sure I wanna do this," like so I mean, I went for the first year and I did that, but it was like summer break or whatever where I was like, "Yeah, this isn't for me." This may be hurtful to you, but I don't even recall my conversation with you to tell you that I'm not coming back because that was even just as big or bigger than talking to my parents because my parents, sure, it was I've always had like, "Oh, I'm gonna disappoint my parents," but it's like I'm disappointing you, but I'm also leaving you. Like, we weren't like, you didn't need me to be there, like, you weren't dependent on me financially to be there in that sense, like, well, we're renting a place, like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, because we just paid our own rent for our room, but it's like, I left you. Like, I don't know how I would have taken it if it were the other way around, and I don't I don't recall, like, all the thoughts and emotions that I went through, like, leading up to, like, "Oh, I've gotta have a conversation with Josh," like, and or, like, thinking about it for my parents too.
I was pissed.
Rightfully so. I do not blame you. I never would blame you for that.
I'm just gonna leave it there. I was very frustrated with it. Like I'm alone with Amber and Kylie. Like I think Kylie ended up moving out, but then, you have to go to that McDonald's that we just talked about with no friend. So, but in a couple of ways, it actually helped me get into a couple of routines. That's when I started to work out a little bit more and just stay focused on certain things. I got to know other people that maybe wouldn't abandon me within a year period of time, so that was good. No, but I was a little frustrated at the time that because we had good times in that year
Absolutely.
too.
But that's it, like, it wasn't like it was truly and I wasn't doing well in all my courses, and I just was like, I didn't wanna fail. I didn't know if I went back for 2nd year how well I would do, and I'm kinda like, "Here's an easy way out." Like, I can stop going and pivot and do something else, and then I don't feel like as much of a failure as opposed to seeing it through and seeing if I can actually graduate or whatever, so I was like, "Easy way out, let me take it."
That's an interesting insight. Why
Yeah, I know that for
why
sure.
do you think you weren't doing well in the program?
I feel like you're alluding to something.
I'm just curious.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't completely applying myself the way I should.
Okay, good answer.
Maybe someone came down to my room and stunk up my room with their fish too many times and I couldn't concentrate anymore.
Okay, so now you're just pushing back. I get it. We'll move on.
Passive aggressive?
How difficult was it to make the transition? So what I understand is you went back to McDonald's, right? Like on a longer, fuller time scale. I forget what time period that was.
So I did the day lady thing, as we affectionately called it. I did that the year before we went away to school, actually. Because I actually went back for a little bit of OAC, and even that, I made a decision, like, in, like, October. I'm like, "I'm done with this. Why am I still here? What am I doing? I'm already going to Humber next year. Like, why am I here?" And so I made the decision to drop out in a sense and be a day lady for the year. But, yes, I did when I went back, I ended up getting hired, like applying for a job to be a casual secretary for the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, but I also kept McDonald's and certainly kept both of them going for a while. So I would work at McDonald's as often as I could and then pick up like as many shifts at the board as I could.
When you made the decision to come back, just cut your losses, that sort of thing. If you were to reflect back now, do you think I know there was fear of failure and that sort of thing, but do you think that path was one of the first moments where you might have like trusted your instincts, your decision to make a pretty significant decision?
I think so, and like I said, like, yeah, I didn't want to fail, and I saw an easy way out, and I took it, but at the same time, it was also like, "Why am I going back?" Like, I'm not doing well, I'm not enjoying the course, I'm enjoying my time there, but I'm not enjoying the course. It wasn't what I thought it would be completely, right? Like, and because, like, like, when I took marketing in high school, I got 98% in business and, like, so I loved that side of it, but this was a lot more sales and I didn't like that side of it. That I'm a shy person. I hate making small talk with people. Like, I'm not a salesperson. So not that that was coming out yet at that point, but I think it just the writing was on the wall and so I think it was like I'm like I need to get out of here and just kinda go with my gut because I got out of there with no real plan other than fortunately there was a job posting for, like, on-call work with the board, but even that, I was like, "I don't know, do I wanna be a secretary for the rest of my life? I don't know."
And so still trying to navigate things, but it obviously has worked out for you and we'll get into it. What
Yes.
would you say to someone that maybe felt stuck in a direction that they no longer connect with?
You honestly have to, it sounds so cliche, but trust your gut and just go with what feels right as opposed to doing something that you think is right or that you think is what someone else expects you to do. Just you have to just go with it. Go with your your gut.
Well put. When you think about your career path of where it started and where you are now, it seems to be really steady and relationship driven over time. Did you always see yourself moving into leadership and negotiation roles?
So definitely not, especially when I first started with the school board. There was no way any of what I'm doing now was even an inkling of a thought in what I could be doing. Yeah, you really like I had no idea when I applied to be a casual worker with the school board, like what that could possibly turn into. It probably took a couple years into it before I started to get involved, and then really things changed.
Yeah, so you started casual, then kind of into larger leadership positions. What do you think helped you earn trust along the way?
I think a big piece of it is my sincerity and just my ability to make and create relationships with people. And like when I look at working with people in the leadership roles that I did and do, I think that a big part of it is trying to make the person that I'm with or the people, the group that I'm with, like feel comfortable and approachable for them to come and talk to me. But also I always approached my work with the board, like when I was in my union role with the board, especially, that as a union leader, you're bringing forward a lot of problems to the employer to try to work through and try to resolve. So I always pride myself in that I don't I'm not the person that's just spewing off the problems. Like I'm there to here's the problem, here's how I feel we can resolve it, or here's the problem. I don't know how to resolve it, but can we put our heads together and talk this through and try to come up with some type of solutions? Because I've been in rooms where there are people that just like to spew out the problems and never try to bring solutions, and that is not me, and I think that a lot of people have noticed that and have seen that in me and respect that.
Nice. So you alluded to your a bond that you have with your mom, some of
Mhm.
it touching on the fact that you followed a similar career path. Can you help us kind of understand that picture and where that bond might have been
Yeah.
stricken?
Yeah, so my mom did the same job that I did as a school secretary and got involved. Actually, she started just after I started kindergarten because she stayed home with all of us. Well, and so when I started school, she started working with the board and she got involved in the union like almost immediately. And she was the bargaining unit president in the local for quite some time, which is working a lot with the board and negotiations and things like that. And then she got hired at our provincial office and then started supporting around the province. So by the time I came up and started getting involved in the union, by the time I started just as a rep and then I became chief negotiator and we were negotiating our contracts with the school board, and my mom was at provincial office and so she was assigned to us in Hamilton, and so I literally got to work with my mom directly one-on-one when we were preparing for bargaining and at the bargaining table. And so she would be there. And so you're at the bargaining table, we're speaking, we're doing our passes, we're going through everything. We get to what we call our back room. And then my mom would say, okay, here's y- you've just said all this. You have to type up your pass to the board and get everything organized and get ready for the next time we're going back into the room. And, what are we going to present back to them? And what's our counter and things like that. And I remember looking at her one time and I said, I know you do not make the other people that you work with do all of this work. Like you do it for them. You're making me do it, but I know you do it for them. And I that's probably one of the biggest things that I can appreciate so much from working with my mom, having her there, because had she not made me do that, and had she done more of the work that I know she did for the other groups she was assigned to, I probably may not be where I am. I may not have, like, picked up on the skills that I've picked up on and the ability to do things rather quickly, because I see the people that we work with and support now, and some people just get it and some people it takes them a while, which is fine because it's not second nature to them, but it just came because and it was my mom, so I could ask her what I felt would be a stupid question that I might not have felt comfortable asking someone else from our provincial office where it's like, "Oh, provincial's here, like, I can't ask them that, I don't wanna feel stupid." And I mean, we could have conversations I was still living at home, like, we could have conversations at home about what we're doing, what's our strategy, what's this, so I got that like, definitely got, like, extra inside trading from my mom, from getting to work with her, which definitely, absolutely sculpted me to where I am
What a
today.
unique experience. Not many people get to have that, and I love that she
Yeah,
taught you
for
the hard
sure.
way.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So you volunteered for the union work, from my understand, for years while working full time. I have that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Yes, yeah, yeah. When I was chief negotiator, it was all volunteer, like, I was still working full-time at the school board, and I even had a little side job for a bit at Ricky's.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but everything I did for the union while I was chief negotiator was completely, like, voluntary.
So what motivated you to do all that? Did you see, like, the end in sight, or was there another motive?
I started to. Like, when I first started being chief negotiator, I don't think it was there. I was just like, "Oh, I'll do this. It's something neat, it's different, it gives me something to do, whatever." But then a couple years in, I was just like, "I really like this." And as chief negotiator, you get to go to more provincial meetings where you're with other presidents and chief negotiators in the room, and you start to make contacts around the province, and it's just like, "Oh, I really enjoy this." And then, I started putting my name forward for provincial work groups and provincial committees. And I think the biggest thing for me was when I got appointed to what at the time was called the Provincial Collective Bargaining Committee. I was by far the youngest person that had ever been on the committee. I was the youngest person in all of our meetings. And it felt like I'm here. Like this is an accomplishment. This is huge. And from there, it was just what's next? Like where can this lead me? And I knew then that eventually it could lead me to where I am today. And so that was kind of on my mind, like fairly early on when I was even still, like I said, just in a voluntary position in the union.
Okay, so we've talked about this beforehand. I wanna make sure that listeners don't think I'm being inappropriate asking, but you're at a point in your career where you're a chief negotiator, you're working full time, you got a side hustle on Ricky's, and just seems like and you're seeing the end in mind. And I understand you made a pretty important decision about where you're going to take your life in terms of becoming a parent or not. Can you
Mhm,
walk us
mhm.
through that decision making process and yeah, how you came about the decision?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I've said, I was the youngest person around, like, doing the job that I was doing, and then even I'll say even when I became, like, president of the bargaining unit, just your free time is no longer your free time. Before, when I was volunteering and working and everything, you had no free time, and now it's like now I'm fully involved, and it's you just you just kinda knowing also that your time could be limited. When you're in a union position, it's an elected position. So, at least in our situations, not where I am now, but so every 2 years I was up for reelection as well. So, I knew that I had to deliver. Like I didn't have a direct boss. I always said my members were my boss. And so if I wasn't performing, like they're going to let me know 2 years from now because they're not going to reelect me. And then your life changes again because you're doing a completely different job than what you were. So like work hours weren't like 9 to 5 when you're doing the union stuff. So it really takes over your personal life. And I thought I can't dedicate all my time and effort to this, knowing now that that is the path that I want to go down and that I would like to get a job at provincial office. Um, I shouldn't say it can't be done, but I just knew that I wanted to put my focus on my career. And so, you know, Jay and I had multiple conversations about it and just knew that that's that was sort of the path that we needed to go down and we were going down it together. And we were okay with it. It's difficult because there's always a part of me that will always have a little bit of regret for not having children of my own, literally not knowing what it's like to carry a child and have your own child, but I have all my nieces and nephews. I've always been like a really involved aunt and kept them very close to me. So hopefully one of them will take care of me when I'm in the retirement home and I have nobody. But I mean, your own children might not take care of you, so you never know.
Yeah, yeah, like, I'm 50-50 with my kids, I don't know, they'll step up.
Depends on the day,
Like,
right? So
did you have any doubts that you worked through in terms of just your focus on that career, or almost doing the opposite where you find something else to do to accommodate a family life? Or is it just always career?
it was just always career. And I think a big part of it is because to this day, the job that I have now as well, more so now, like I'm not home very much. Or like I'm literally flying to Thunder Bay in 2 days and I won't be home till Saturday night at 9, 10 o'clock at night. I was gone to Thunder Bay for 10 days a month ago. I could not do that personally. I could not allow myself to do that if I had younger children and they would still be young-ish. And I can't do that to myself, like the guilt that I would feel, and I can't certainly can do that to my husband and feeling like leaving him left with the parenting duties while I'm gone. And so I mean, that all played a huge part in making those decisions as well.
Okay. So you talked about negotiation quite a bit, and it sounds it sounds intimidating to a lot of people. What have you learned about communication and human behavior through that work? And what principles do you stand by as you approach negotiations? I know you touched on a couple already, but maybe just reiterate if you need to.
Yeah. Um, I think one thing you really learn is, I guess I'll say a skill that I find incredibly valuable when you're, especially in negotiations, is active listening. And because I've been at negotiation tables where the other side is not actively listening to what we have to say. And it's beyond frustrating because you're literally sitting there saying everything that your members so desperately need and giving them all the rationale as to why and how you can do this, and then you know that they're not even actually listening. So a big piece is definitely active listening and being able to read people as well, and on your side being able to have that poker face, because that's incredibly difficult. I still to this day find myself sometimes I smile a little too much sometimes, or I even find my head nodding just a little bit as I'm listening, and I have to literally still say to myself, "Stop moving your head." Like, because just as we have trained people on our side to watch for that body language, they're doing the same thing to us, right? So when someone's presenting something and if I'm smiling, it looks like well, I'm not contractually held to anything, but if I'm smiling, it looks like they feel like, "Oh yeah, she knows where we're coming from. Like we'll get somewhere with them with this one," you know? So that's a huge piece. But then honestly, the way I handle it as well is you have to be honest and sincere in your approach when you're bargaining. Don't go in there trying to bluff them. Don't go like, there's times you're gonna go in and you're gonna put your pie in the sky ask. That's how you start negotiations, right? You know that whatever you're putting forward as your first ask, you're not gonna get it. In most cases, you might have some things where you know you're good. But so being honest and sincere in your approach on how you're trying to bargain and get those things achieved. And also at that point as well, it's what are the most important items, because you're going to go in there with a whole list of items that you're going to try to achieve, knowing that you're not going to get half of them. But what are the most important pieces to, in my case, to my members and to members at large and the whole membership, as opposed to just maybe this small group of members that might really, they might be the most vocal ones saying how desperately they need this. They might be the ones calling you all the time, complaining about this and that. But when you're at the negotiations table, you really have to be able to take a step back and see what's best for as many people that are involved and what can you achieve without giving up a lot that could affect other people as well. And being open to listening to the other side. That's how I take the approach. It doesn't always feel like the employers take that approach. Although I had some fairly decent relationships with the people at the school board when I worked there, like bargaining. That and a big part of negotiations as well is actually having what we call sidebars. So when you get deeper into bargaining, you get to points where it's like, look, there's a couple items left that we really need to make some moves on. And I'm gonna ask the lead spokesperson from the other side, like, "Can we have a one-on-one in the hall or a two-on-two in the hall? And let's have, like, an off the record conversation, and let's dive really deep into it." And you can have a way more detailed, like, frank conversation in the hallway than what you can in front of her. You're almost putting on a show when you're there with the full teams. So when you can go out there and be like, "Look, this is what I need. What do we need to do to get here? I need to bring something back to my members so that they feel that they have that respect from their employer, and how can we get there?"
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah. Nice little eloquent dance. Thanks for the insight. So your role is executive assistant, and I understand it might
Yes.
be a bit of a misnomer. Can you walk us through what your day to day looks like today?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the title executive assistant does not really explain what my job is, but day to day can be all over the place. From what now I work at provincial office where I now actually support the locals where I would have come up from, like in Hamilton as the president there. So I now am the person at provincial where they will call me if they need to talk things through or get a different perspective, or talk like from a legal perspective and that sort of. I don't give legal advice by any means, but I'm the avenue to legal advice for them. But certainly, I will go in and I will support members through their bargaining and their local negotiations with the school board. I am a big part of provincial bargaining with the, well, it's changing now, but with the Ministry of Education and the government. And so we're at those bargaining tables where we're trying to negotiate the contracts on behalf of our 1,000 plus members. It's my department is negotiations, contract maintenance, and so that's my job. In that we're in there to protect and member protection, and we're in there to protect what has been collectively bargained in people's collective agreements. And I say that because we have collective agreements, and unfortunately they get violated all the time from the employer, sometimes from the members themselves, but it's a legal binding contract that we have to uphold. And so when there are issues with that, then we have processes that we go through, and that's where we support our members from things as little as people aren't getting their lunch breaks, people aren't getting their overtime paid accordingly, or they're not getting access to overtime, things like that, but also to, you know, much more difficult things for people where there's questions may come up about attendance and things. And so we're supporting members all over the place, like where I literally will one day I'll be in one area where I'm assigned and I'm in a meeting with a member that's going through an investigation where the employer just has a lot of questions that they have to ask them. And then we have to see what the outcome is. And sometimes the outcome is easier to deal with than things that could end up leading to, you know, harsh discipline or sometimes even termination. Tomorrow, I'm going to be in an arbitration that has been going on for a little over a year now. When I say that, it's only sporadic dates. It's not like we have that many dates, but so it's literally like a court case that I'll be in all day tomorrow. And then we do things like pay equity and contract maintenance I already mentioned. And so it's hard to describe to people because and there's literally no day is the same as the last, and very rarely, other than actual meetings, do my days go as I think I have planned them to go. You get one phone call, and it just completely changes your trajectory for the day and what you're going to do or get accomplished. Or there's multiple times that I have to put work on such and such file in my calendar, and I constantly have to move that to the next day or the next day, or, you know,
Mm, mhm.
so
Well, it keeps it interesting.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna get into a couple of like thematic questions, and then we're gonna get into a lightning round if you're okay with this.
Okay, okay, yep.
Okay, so if you were to look back at your younger self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that you need to work hard, stop goofing around so much, and stop caring so much about belonging, even though I don't think I felt it at the time, but definitely looking back now, stop caring so much about belonging and work your ass off because it will pay off and it will get you to where you are today.
Nice. Has your definition of success changed over time?
I think it has. I think, although I would say, yes, it has, but But since I've gotten involved in the union, and especially since I took on the role of chief negotiator and I started being on provincial committees, my definition of success there, I saw the light of like where this path could take me. And so that was always my when I get there, I can truly say I've been successful. And so I'm there. Like I'm here living it right now and I'm incredibly happy and love my job. So I think yes, it's changed from my late teens, early 20s, but really from probably late 20s, this has been like, that's my goal and I'm going to get
That's
there.
incredible.
And that's success.
What do you hope people remember about the way you show up in the world?
Hope they remember my sincerity and that I do try to really be a good friend, a good caring person to people in situations and just that they see that genuine kind-heartedness that I bring to life, like not just to friends, but in my work situations and everything and that I'm a hard worker.
I'll say you're a caring person. Having known you for 30 years, you're one of the best listeners I've ever met. Like, you can listen for
Thank
days.
you. Yep. I don't always like to talk very much, which is why I was very
Yeah.
nervous to do this because I do not like to talk so much, but I can
Well, you're
listen.
doing great, so I appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
lightning round. Lightning quick, no
Okay.
pressure, but there's some pressure.
Okay.
One word to describe your teenage self. Hmm.
Unsure.
Biggest lesson from working at McDonald's.
If there's a time to lean, there's a time to clean.
Love how you got that in.
I still say it to this day.
Most underrated life skill.
Active listening.
Something you value far more now than you did at 20.
True time with loved ones.
One thing people misunderstand about unions.
That we're not just here to protect the people that shouldn't be protected and that are just shouldn't have the jobs that they have. Some employers need to be put in their place because they truly do mistreat their employees.
Okay. Career lesson you learned the hard way.
Not trusting myself in that I had so many situations where I was quite often the youngest person in the room and having having to really build my confidence and feeling comfortable to be in those rooms that I was in.
Okay. We're going to take it a little less serious here. Song that instantly
Okay.
takes you back to high school.
Only You by 112.
Good one. Good one.
That's tough because there's
Yeah.
so many.
Most chaotic student house memory.
Okay, so not the fish smell from Josh, but our basement washroom that typically was only used by myself and one other roommate other than when Josh would come down to use it.
And I swear this wasn't me.
Because you and I are both left-handed, so we were able to our detective skills that we had when we were finding toilet paper that missed the toilet and just sat on the floor beside the toilet. But as we said, we are both left-handed, so we knew it could not have been either of us.
Yeah. Did you want to describe the scene of the crime?
I think I
We'll leave
did.
it there.
But
Were the 90s actually better or are we just nostalgic?
they were actually better, but if I could take it to, like, late '90s, early 2000s, it no, can I not? But even either way, they were better. They were better. Just
I
everything
agree.
about it was better, and we're not just our parents saying, "Oh, it was better," when they were yeah, it
Okay.
was better.
One thing adulthood absolutely did not prepare you for.
How hard it really is. Like, the difficult decisions you have to make and the resiliency that you truly you build along the way, and you absolutely build it along the way. You don't realize you're building it as you go, but just the resiliency that you need and the importance of this is honestly I know you didn't even ask me this, but I'm going there, but, like, one thing that I have learned about resiliency especially is get over trying to understand the why about a situation. And I learned that years ago, and I carry that with me to this day. You'll never understand the why, but it's how can you just move forward and get past whatever happened and just keep
Yeah,
going.
resentment, it just kind of builds up like a snowball and it just becomes overwhelming when you let it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
last question. After everything life has thrown at you so far, if you think about friendships, career shifts, leadership, marriage, and just getting older naturally, what do you think actually matters the most in the end?
The true in my opinion, the true, like, deep-rooted relationships that you build with people, and that's whether that's your in my case, my husband, my friends, my family, but also in your career as well. You cannot be successful if you're not focused on building relationships in every aspect of life.
Very well put. Very well put. Sham, we did it.
We did it.
Congratulations. Did you have fun?
I
Good.
did.
Good.
I did.
Thanks for being a part of this. You shared a lot, especially on the union stuff, like the in negotiation, particularly. I think there is,
Yeah.
publicly maybe a perception of what unions bring to the table versus what employers bring to the table. And just like anything, nothing's black and white. There's a purpose for each. And I like what you talked about in terms of negotiating and showing up authentically, but also the sense of belonging in high school. We are going to unpack that. I that threw me off. I'm not gonna lie. Very little throws me off, but I was surprised to hear that today.
Yeah. Is that our next Friday movie
Yes,
night? Maybe we won't watch a
yes,
movie.
we'll hook that up soon. But thanks again for being a part of it. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, as you said, in your schedule and out of your comfort zone, but you did it, and I appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you for having me. I appreciate you thinking of me as a guest.
Anytime. And that was my conversation with Sam. Sam and I have had many conversations here and there about career and life and friendships, but this was the first opportunity to put it all together. And what stood out to me most was how much of her story is really rooted in trust in friendships, timing, eventually trusting herself. Sam made a big decision early on to step away from a program that didn't feel right, that might have maybe disappointed a friend of hers that might have lived with her at the time, but it came from uncertainty and pressure and probably some fear of disappointing people. But looking back, that decision became part of the foundation for everything that followed. Her career is such a strong example of steady growth, starting in clerical roles, taking on union work voluntarily, learning from her mom, building confidence in rooms where she was often the youngest person there, and eventually becoming someone others rely on for negotiation, advocacy, and support. What I appreciated most was Sam's emphasis on sincerity, active listening, and relationships. Whether she was talking about friendship, leadership, negotiation, or career growth, the theme was consistent that people matter. How you show up matters. And as her friend, I can personally vouch for Sham. This is how she shows up. She has to be one of the best listeners I have in my life to date. Further, what we also see from her story is real success is often built through trust, consistency, and the relationships you build over time. This conversation also reminded me that confidence doesn't always look loud from the outside. Sometimes it's built quietly through experience, through hard decisions, through learning to speak up, and through realizing you do belong in the rooms you once felt unsure about. So, if there's a takeaway from this episode, I'd say some of the decisions that feel uncertain in the moment are the ones that help you become who you're meant to be, although it might not seem that obvious at the time. And sometimes the people who knew you before the titles, before the career, before the polished version of adulthood, those relationships can be the grounding, familiar parts of your journey as you navigate uncertain times and new experiences. So I encourage you to nurture and protect those. relationships that you've had before the career. Sam or Cham, thank you for being part of this conversation and for being a part of this JTT LL Cool J poster vandalizer's life for over 30 years. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.